All right, so welcome to another whole body migraine assessment call. My name is Dr. Tanya Paynter. I am a naturopathic doctor who really likes to dig into the whys of chronic migraines and understand what our symptoms are telling us, kind of an overview of the patterns that a particular person represents. And that gives us a lot of information about what is going on with the migraines. So, unfortunately, the conventional approach to migraines are very haphazard in the way that it's treated. Try this, try that. Here's another medication. Oh, you failed this class. Let's move on to the next one. And we actually can be much more targeted and much more specific about what we're prescribing and how we can understand what's happening for you and your migraines by just listening a little bit to the symptoms you describe and the patterns that you've already noticed. So the whole body migraine assessment is basically me doing that for people who have signed up for this call. And if you're interested in that as well, you can definitely sign up using the link in the description below. So in the whole body migraine assessment, I'm reviewing information that the person who signed up shared with us, and I'm evaluating that information to look for the patterns that their symptoms are revealing. And that helps to guide us towards some of those underlying issues that are going on for them. And they can take that information with them to their doctor to kind of work a little bit further on that. With any luck, their doctors know how to do that. So without further ado, let's talk about Melissa. So today is Melissa's turn. Melissa has been dealing with chronic migraines for, let's see, so she gets about 16 to 20 a month, so pretty significant amount of the time. She's noticed that alcohol and gluten will trigger her migraines. Hormones, she's not quite so sure about them because she gets so many, she isn't able to find that cyclical component. One thing I'll just kind of drop in right here, Melissa, is that what I say all the time is if you're a woman and you have chronic migraines, hormones are playing a role. Absolutely. It might not be the biggest piece of the puzzle for you, but there is going to be some hormonal imbalances that are contributing. So that's neither here nor there right now, but it might be something that as you move forward in your healing process, that you actually start to see those cyclical patterns happening. And that will actually, I see that all the time where the cycle piece of it doesn't come to light until after some of the healing has already started. All right, she mentions a family history. With some issues, so that points to a genetic component. She has some seasonal allergy issues, some gut health issues, some GI stuff going on, and that's kind of the information that she provided. One of the things that I really like to hear information on is things that you've tried that either has or has not worked. Melissa, you didn't share anything that you've really tried as far as medications or, chiropractic or supplements or other things that you've done. And that can really give us a lot of very valuable information, even the things that you've tried that didn't work or things that you've tried that made things worse. Because we understand how drugs and medications and supplements work in our body, then we can tell what is being thrown off by how you feel after you take it, right? If you feel worse after a certain medication, that gives us a little bit of information about, okay, here's what's going on with this particular pathway that this medication is working on. So that information is really important to kind of compile and figure out what meds you've tried that has and hasn't worked. So some of the things, the patterns that I'm kind of seeing with this is, number one, above everything else, is gut health. There is a lot of research about our gut and migraines. I can't remember the exact statistics, but I want to say something like 54% of women with chronic migraines also have been diagnosed with IBS or similar GI issues. That's a really high percentage. And we also know of something called the gut-brain connection, or the gut-brain, I'm totally blanking on it. What's that called? Gut-brain. Well, anyway, whatever. There's a connection between the gut and the brain. And so we know that when there's inflammation going on in the gut, it's also contributing to inflammation in the brain. Another interesting piece about our gut health and how it affects our migraines is our serotonin levels. So we used to think, so serotonin is one of our neurotransmitters. We used to think that the brain produced it. It told the body how to work and all of that stuff. What we've actually found over the last couple of decades is that serotonin, about 90% of it is actually made in the gut and not in the brain. About 10% is made in the brain. That's huge, because we know also that serotonin deficiency contributes to depression. And it also is a big migraine trigger. That's why triptans work, SSRIs work. Anything that helps to boost serotonin is a well-known course of action for migraine treatments, because low serotonin will contribute to all of that. And so if we understand that 90% of our serotonin is made in the gut, and there's a lot of gut issues going on, then logically we can deduce that your gut's not making the serotonin it needs to, and that's going to be an underlying issue going on. So we really need to kind of dig down a little bit into what's going on. As far as the gut issues, it could be, usually what I see, it's is one of two things. Either there's a dietary component or there's an infectious component. If you've had, comprehensive testing done, there's no infection going on, you've ruled out candida, there's no viral GI infection happening, then most likely what it is it's something dietary. There's an inflammatory food that you're eating. Maybe you are having issues with histamine, which we'll talk about in a minute. Histamine is very inflammatory for the gut, especially if you don't have the enzyme DAO that helps to break it down. So that can contribute to inflammation. So there's quite a few things to kind of investigate from the gut health standpoint. So now cycling back to the histamine piece, you had mentioned that you have some seasonal allergy issues going on. So the seasonal allergies, depending on the severity and the frequency and the correlation that you notice with your migraines, if they get worse during allergy season, then there's definitely a histamine component. So that could mean that you need to try a low histamine diet, but it also, that's the temporary fix, right? The more permanent fix is helping you to helping your body to actually process histamine more effectively. And there are protocols and ways to do that so that you no longer have to stay on a low histamine diet. We can do it by supporting that DAO enzyme that I mentioned. We can do it with certain nutrients helping to clear out that histamine pathway. So there are a lot of things that we can actually do to heal your body so that it processes histamine much more appropriately. So then you can open your diet back up and begin eating those high histamine foods, which includes things like leftovers and tomatoes and things. So it can be fairly restrictive sticking on a low histamine diet. All right, and then the last piece that I'll touch bases on is family history. So you had mentioned, let me make sure that I'm not misquoting. You had mentioned from a family history standpoint, you weren't not specific, but you just said that there is a family history of migraines or mood disturbances such as anxiety, depression, ADD, something like that. So you answered yes to that question. So that tells me that there is a genetic component that is contributing. Now, some people think that this is really bad news because they're born with the genes they're born with and there's nothing they can do about it. And that is only true to a certain extent because we've learned something called epigenetics, which is basically how we are able to positively influence how our genes work. We can turn things on and off based on lifestyle, environmental exposures, how our body detoxifies things, stress levels, all of that kind of stuff can actually improve how our genes function. So while we can't change the genes, we can improve the way those genes function. And so taking a look at, without a little bit more clarity around your specific symptoms and some of the things that you're experiencing, the three biggies that kind of come to mind for me with everything I've shared with so far is the MTHFR gene, the COMT gene, COMT gene, and the MAOA gene. And also possibly the DAO gene, because that's responsible for that histamine piece I was telling you about. So those are kind of the major genetics that I take a look at. You can actually Google all of them. There's a lot of information about them, as well as their links to migraine and other symptoms that you might experience as a result of these genes not working properly. So again, this is where understanding that whole body and all of the symptoms you experience. Do you have a lot of depression? Do you have issues sleeping? Do you get a lot of anxiety? Do you have a lot of issues handling stressful situations? What are your mood swings like? All of that can actually give us a lot of information about the things that are out of balance for you and your migraine. So we can dig a little bit deeper, but just from the information that you provided on the application form, I would say biggie number one is going to be investigating the gut, whether it's a dietary component, a histamine component, or an infection component, or even if it's not an active infection, if it's an imbalance in your gut bacteria, that can also present in a very inflammatory way. So hopefully that was helpful to kind of give you a little bit more direction as far as where to go and things to start working on. So one of the final things that I always like to mention at the end of these calls is that you don't want to just find and eliminate the things that are going on, right? That's a really important piece. The three-step process that I use with all my clients is evaluate. So doing a lot of what we just did with Melissa's case and evaluating those symptoms and the patterns and understanding some of what's going on, and then beginning to eliminate the things that are contributing to those problem areas. So whatever that looks like. But most of the time, and a lot of you, you might have already done that kind of work where you've evaluated your symptoms and you've kind of trialed and errored and eliminated a lot of stuff. And that's usually where I see treatment ending. And it's insufficient, to be honest, to be quite blunt about it, because without that healing, the elimination leads to more and more elimination because the imbalances haven't been fixed. And so then your body is like, oh, okay, all right, well, I don't have this anymore. All right, well, I'm not really a big fan of, this food that you started eating. You're eating more soy now that you've gone dairy free. So I think we're going to start like having some hormone issues, and maybe we're going to start building up an intolerance to soy. And suddenly now you can't eat soy. So then you go to cashew, and then suddenly you have an issue with cashew, right? So there's that cycle of elimination. And then suddenly you're not able to eat or do anything because everything is triggering a migraine. And I see that pattern so often. So that last third step, that healing step, is absolutely critical in order to move forward and start unrestricting things so you can live a normal life. And it is possible. I had daily chronic migraines for over a decade before I finally understood what was going on with my body and worked to heal it. And now I can eat gluten and dairy and all kinds of different things, enjoy a beverage with my husband at night if I want to, and not have to pay with a headache or a migraine the next day. So it is possible. You just have to understand, where those things are affecting you and how, and then what you can do to actually stimulate that healing process. All right. So enough about that. So it's really an effective way to go about doing things. And if you want more information about this type of an approach, working on understanding your individualized biochemical imbalances that are contributing to your migraines, then I would invite you to watch my free training. It's linked below in the comments. And you can also reach out to me as well. Leave a comment in the section and, let me know what's going on for you. And I will be happy to direct you with any resources that I can help to find for you so that you can kind of begin down this road of understanding your own chemical issues. All right, until next time.